industry also recognizes that to truly achieve transformation, we also have to consider more holistic. So water, pollution, the idea of forever chemicals, microplastics, toxicity. Now, these are all very big topics, and it sets us some goals. The industry is fully behind, and it sets us on that path. And we have legislation around the world that is to support us with that. So in Europe, we have Fit to 55. So that sets us a goal for 2030, which acts as a great interim point. And it benchmarks against 1990. And it's the idea of reducing greenhouse gases by 55% versus 1990. We've got 5 years left as we sit here today in 2025. And what that means is the transformation begins at the big places. So far, we've been working towards this for a number of years, and it's been focused on energy, electricity, natural gases, coal, renewables. How can we transform the energy that we use to manufacture our chemicals, our materials? And this is where scope 1, scope 2. But as we continue the transformation, increasingly we recognize we have to go way beyond that, look at entire value chains from feedstocks to final products to their end of life, which is where we hit circularity.
You set out so many things, right, across this whole industry, and it's 2025. We've only got 25 more years to get to this 2050 goal. Why are we setting it? I don't know. It feels like very soon. And so why is the milestone 2050? And then what if we don't get there?
Okay, well, this milestone was set a number of years ago. I mean, we're talking over a decade. And we've been talking about it from before that. So it's not a 25-year program. This is more like, 50, 40, 35, depending from where you set the button. But in effect, we agreed as a society internationally to the Paris Agreement. And that is very binding. It requires notable transformation. The word is nothing short but transformation. And if we were to achieve that, then the key industry that inputs and climate change, climate warming, extreme weather events, etc., then you have to do something bold. And so the Green Deal and all of the individual initiatives and regulations and policies that have come out of this to support are all driven by that 2050 goal. Now, it would be easy to sit here and say, well, perhaps we won't achieve it, etc. And the honest truth is perhaps we won't, but we cannot have an attitude of that. We have to go for it. We have to say we have 25 years. It's 1, it's 2, possibly investment cycles. The chemicals industry is a notoriously slow industry for logical reasons. The capital investment of building new is enormous, and the time it takes to build a plant is enormous. I was looking at the energy industry recently about the lack of transformers in Europe. So we have that 2030 goals, 5 years to go. But the reality is you can't decarbonize, even though that word chemically doesn't make sense, but it's the words that we're using in the world. If you don't have transformers to enable you to transform your energy, and there are only limited number of factories, a limited number of supply. And so the CapEx, the requirements to build them, mean that the factories are saying, well, pay us up front, pay us in advance, and we will build the factory and we will supply you those transformers. However, people don't want to do that. They don't want to pay 5 years before they're going to get it. So we're in this chicken and egg. And whilst I'm talking transformers and energy, it's applicable to a lot of the innovations and the way they can, industry and whole. It's logical if you're looking at accounts and books and targets. But it doesn't necessarily support a 25-year program that's holistic in its thinking.
And from what I can hear, you're talking about actually there's just, it sounds like a lack of infrastructure is a big challenge, the infrastructure across the industry for us to get there. Are we making enough progress with developing this infrastructure, or are we behind schedule if we've still got 25 years to sort of get there?
I think we would always say we are behind schedule. Great progress has been made. The chemicals industry has truly embraced the idea of going renewables, of moving away from the heavy fuels of 20 years ago, and how can we also use efficiencies and burn wastes for calorific value if they can't be used elsewhere, because that then reduces your energy requirement, etc. Great strides have been made. Where we haven't been so great is in scaling up the new technologies, the new innovations that can help us go that one step further.
You're talking about scalability. We are, and actually we may be behind schedule to an extent, and there's a lot of work for us to do. At the moment in the world, my view, the world is a bit scary. There's a lot going on. There's geopolitical challenges. There's war. We've had, obviously, the climate crisis has been having huge impacts, big fires in different parts of the world. We've had supply chain challenges driven by some of those geopolitical issues that we've seen. In this space, could you give me an understanding of what are some of those biggest challenges that you think we'll need to overcome, probably in the shorter term, so that we can really accelerate this transformation?
Well, Ed, you've highlighted some geopolitical challenges, which obviously are the backdrop from the work that we're doing as an industry to transform and meet those 2050 goals. I would add into it logistical bottlenecks. COVID, whilst history really brought into the spotlight ideas of threats, risks from globalization. And so what we really have to do now is de-risk and accelerate. That comes in many facets. And so in some ways, are we looking at regionalization? So I mentioned circularity before. If we create a circular world, and so we take the feedstocks that today we're calling waste, and we recognize that today we have the technologies so that there's no such thing as waste, whether it be the moldy onion that's at the back of your fridge right now in your house, or whether it be the plastic bottle that's sitting in a bin in the town square where you live. Well, no matter what it is, it has a life beyond. And when we say there's no such thing as waste, today's waste is tomorrow's feedstock, we're also saying, as a society, we're actually going back to the past. It's only in the last 80, maybe 100 years post-World War II, the crude oil petrochemical bonanza, that we have created a world of make, use, throw away, that linear world. Before that, everyone, unless you were incredibly rich, took every single thing you owned, and you either prolonged its use until the very last second, or you used it for something else, you repurposed it. And so what we're doing is recognizing that we have to go back to that. We've had a blip in how we've treated carbon atoms, things, stuff. And now we need to go back and respect them. And we have the technologies. Very clever people have been spending a lot of money and a lot of time over the last 20, 30 years to create a number of innovations, a number of toolbox expansions, if you like, whereby we can now recycle. We can recycle textiles and separate out mixed yarns so that the output is a pure cotton or a pure polyester or a pure nylon or a pure spandex, whatever it might be, and actually build then, if you like, plants to then manufacture your new clothes next to where you've recycled the old clothes and have these pure materials. So what this means is that we could create a future in Europe whereby we don't need to import, or at least we reduce dramatically imports from China or India or anywhere else in the world, because we take our clothes, hopefully we wear them a little bit more than perhaps we are today, but we ultimately recycle them at our population centres, create virgin quality textiles, and then manufacture new clothes and create that circularity. We reduce risks because we minimise supply chains, but there are obviously challenges to this. I'm talking vision, and I'm talking what technology enables us to do. Because what I'm saying is also possible with plastics, and it's also possible with food waste. There is no such thing as food waste, as plastic waste, as because we can turn them into useful products of the future.
And you've already sort of started talking about the different areas, right? The different areas of innovation. You talked about plastics, you talked about fast fashion, or the problem of fast fashion, and actually how we can start using clothes differently. So what are some of the most promising solutions that you've been seeing, or spotlight on some of those maybe companies or organizations that are playing around in this space?
Well, I think I've just mentioned several of them. Indeed, this program, the Future Bridge program that we're here talking about, is to look at 25. Why 25? Well, because it is 2025 and we have 25 years until that goal of 2050. So the number fits very well with where we are. The innovations around supporting circularity, but also changing how we look at manufacturing. So what are our feedstocks? I've just mentioned plastics, I've mentioned textiles, but we can treat the very air itself that we breathe as a feedstock. So as an interesting innovation to showcase, we have some fabulous companies, large companies, small startups working on turning CO2 to chemicals, CO to chemicals, but also with the advent of electrolysis, so another innovation whereby you're using electricity to create chemicals, and renewables should be powering that electricity to truly make this the world of the future. You also can separate water and air. So we're now looking at hydrogen, we're looking at then ammonia, we're looking at the world of all of the gases. We then can bolt on different innovations that are looking at extracting pollution from the air and turning them into inks, for example. So again, a lot of these fabulous innovations could actually be very legitimately located where we exist. And I'm not talking about chemical plants in suburban worlds, but repurposing our petro clusters into the world of the future. So those are a few. I would be remiss if I did not speak to the world of biomass, and that includes wood. So it includes all of our crops, particularly non-food crops, but also where it is appropriate, treating what are food crops as industrial crops. Now, food versus fuel is something that you and I can discuss on another occasion, but that opens up the entire world of bio-based. So whether they be bio-based chemicals, fuels, products of different descriptions. And we've been working for a couple of decades quite seriously in opening up cellulosic biomass as well. So that's using the residues from food crops and wood. And great strides are being made at scale to do exactly that. And so bio-based chemicals are another tool in the box. We also have the world of industrial biotechnology. So biotechnology that instead of being applied to pharmaceuticals is applied to chemicals and materials, enzymes, bacteria. And we have advanced so far that in effect, if you have enough time and you have the investment, you can almost create any chemical you really wish. We can go back to the drawing board. And Ed, it would be really interesting if we discussed a little bit further, perhaps on another occasion. One of the biggest barriers we have is mindset. It's ourselves. It's the fact that we now have the tools to think different, to steal a phrase from Steve Jobs. If we really can do that and question the fact that we don't have the chemical and material processes that are perfect, the solvent that is used in a chemical process isn't the absolute perfect solvent. Instead, it's the perfect solvent that existed 40, 50 years ago, 60, 70, at the right price and the right volume for the process to work industrially. It might be toxic. It might damage water if it comes into contact with it. It might have, polluting effects, but the benefits of it outweighed those costs at the time that the processes were created. Now, we are in a world where we can go back and we have AI, we have computational chemistry, we have the ability to go back and redesign the processes that are the most important to us. And with industrial biotechnology and advances in engineering, look at how we could make the perfect solvent, even a personalized, bespoke solvent. We can think big and think different and go back to first principles. Now, obviously, challenges. We have existing infrastructure that's working today extremely well. We can't mothball it all today and build new, or even mothball it the day the new comes on stream because of capital expenditure, etc. But we are going to have to make some choices, and we are going to have to think seriously about how we take innovations and make them a reality at mature scale in the world, so that we can accelerate and de-risk and achieve those goals of 2050.
Wow, okay. To finish, because this has been fantastic, I'm going to ask you one final question. If we were to make you the queen of the world, where you can, where we could give you the funding, no dodgy legislation challenges, what would be the breakthrough innovation, or what would be the innovation that you would scale and invest in today as one of those that will reshape the industry by 2050? Pick one.
A benign dictator. What a world to be in. It isn't actually an innovation, because the absolutely fantastic thing that we have done, and when I say we, I don't mean me, and I don't mean us, I mean society. The amazing engineers, the scientists, the research developers, the academics, and the business people who have been doing this for 20, 30 years have really come through. And as a society, if you listen to philosophers, politicians, people out there, they will talk about climate change, they'll talk about the challenges that we face, and they'll say technology will solve it. And this is what we're here for. We are going to showcase some of those technologies that will solve it. But this is why we're going to showcase them. Because as we sit here in 2025, I would argue that actually the world has come through. The world of science and engineering and innovation has risen to the challenge and has put out there a smorgasbord of 100, 1,000 fabulous new innovations that answer that question. Technology will solve this. But the issue is that if you say technology will solve this, it will only solve it if it is scaled up, made commercial, and applied in the world. Otherwise, that smorgasbord of technology is simply going to gather dust. So what we need politicians and the whole world to recognize is that we have these technologies, but now we need to change minds. We need to change our finance thinking and timelines connected, our regulatory hurdles, our attitudes towards feedstocks, market creation, the pull, the green premium, the switching of brands and consumer behavior in order to scale up and to recognize, fabulous, we have these technologies, now let's use them.
Great. So technology will solve it is definitely the line I want people to take away. Sarah, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and we will be doing this again, I am sure.
A pleasure, Ed.
Hi all, me again. Just wanted to say I hope you really enjoyed that fantastic interview from Sarah, and thanks so much for her. Any more information, we're going to be launching a whole program of insights to spotlight on some of those technologies, 25 of them that we really want to talk about this year as a scalability opportunity in chemicals, materials, and natural resources on the road to net zero in 2050. So I hope you enjoy them. There'll be opportunities to register to receive contents very regularly from us on each of those innovation sectors, and looking forward to hearing any feedback and any more thoughts. Check it out on futurebridge.com and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much.